Well, Charlie here again. Welcome to episode 6. We're going to talk about the agreements for the workshop. Reflect on it that anything that you engage in, whether it's buying a house or a relationship, it's really important to set the contract agreement. That's, in fact, the boundary conditions of what you're going to operate. So, we're going to show you the ones we use for our workshops. They're a little whimsical. I hope you find them entertaining and fun. And I want you to think about anytime you have a human engagement, workshop, whatever it is, set the boundary conditions, set the agreements. So here we go. By the way, our Hubble Deep Field is back, one of the most beautiful images in astronomy, in my humble opinion. So, what is this about? Negotiating agreements provide behaviors that support a social context that is enjoyable. I think you learn best when you're having a good time. And I think even more importantly, the workshop is very efficient. I want it to run well. Now, I'll always tell you why we're doing something, and we're going to come back to this. By the way, ignore video recording number 2. That's old stuff. We're going to come back to this later, and you're going to look at how you kept these agreements. Normally, we'd post these on the wall. And the second chair is normally, if we're not doing a Zoom workshop, would summarize these on a chart. In a Zoom workshop, you'll just respond to these in the chat box. So I normally would have 3 colored cards, plastic cards on a little metal ring, and ask participants to find their red card. And people pick it up, and I'll say, "What's that for?" And they say, "Stop." And I'll say, "That's right." It's used to stop lengthy story. One of the things that is devastating when we do our small group work is this lengthy story. We don't have time to listen to it. And I'm going to invite you to learn to do your red card verbally. Now, in the regular workshops, we would have you show your cards to agree. Now, if you don't agree and you want to do the red card and we're on Zoom, just make your hand like a stop sign. Now find your green card. What do you think that's for? And someone will say go, and I'll say that's right. The green card is for go. So what I'm going to do after important junctures, I'm going to stop and ask for a card check. I'm more interested actually in the fact that you're thinking about whether you got the material, responding to it in some behavioral way. And and if you're okay and we're in a Zoom workshop, just do the thumbs up. Now I'm going to ask people to find their yellow card. And what's that for? And most commonly, people will think of the analogies I've set up before and say it's about caution. Say, no, it has a biological imperative. I don't want people in my workshops looking like this. So what it's for is if you need to go to the bathroom, you can show your yellow card and go ahead and go. Or if it's the case of a Zoom workshop, you don't have a card, just wave goodbye with your hand and go take care of what you got to take care of. I'm going to propose breaks every hour, usually on the hour, and ask you the negotiation you want. I'll suggest 10 minutes. Very rarely do people want a different time, except in a rare case where we got a problem with some kind of line at the restroom because the hotel's got another conference. But normally people are happy with 10 minutes. But what I really want you to get out of this, I want you to start thinking about negotiating your agreements. You have more power than you think. And in fact, in the case of the workshop, any agreement that you want, I'm likely to accede to it. Interesting thing to me is how much time is wasted with people coming late to meetings and businesses. And I don't see it in school. I cannot think of a time in a classroom when people were as late as they are routinely in business meetings where the time is more valuable and more important. I think 2 reasons for that. One is we have the bell that alerts us to go. But even a bigger one is that schools have breaks between classes. This is a time to go to the restroom, talk with your friends. And I think every business should modify their business software like Meeting Maker to have at least 15 minutes interval between meetings, especially if people are going between other buildings. So a reminder about that. Again, come on time. We'll do a card check now, but again, a thumbs up works in the Zoom. I'm going to ask you to be in your seat and ready to go when the countdown clock, which will be on the screen at every break, counts down. Until we can manage time, we can manage nothing else. Why is this important? Because we all start getting back into the frame of mind that we're listening and learning together, and we get an orderly start to the workshop and don't waste your time. By the way, I don't believe in sit still and learn. So once you sat down and we're underway, if you want to get up and move around, that's perfectly all right. If there's food in the room, you want to get up and get a snack while we're in process, that's perfectly fine. I think you can move around and still pay attention. Card check or thumbs up. Now, I used to do a lot of interactions with the larger group. And what I find is whether the group's 30 or 50 or 250, which I've done all of those cases, a very few people tend to dominate. And the questions that they ask tend to be more about, I don't know, some kind of showing off than really curiosity. And I tried everything. And in fact, it's more like 90-10. So I tried rewards, presents, nothing ever solved this. So one day I decided just to stop taking questions from the group. And this worked really well. So if you have a question, come up during the break. And anytime I'm doing a card check or anytime in the process you want to show a red card, that means, especially if it's a large group, you get first in line at the break to come talk to me. I'll be there, except if I've got to go to the bathroom with my translator. And we'll talk about your question and we'll decide together whether to debrief the larger group, whether it looks like something of general interest. If so, I'll be more than happy to let you do it if you'd like to. That's fine with me. Card check on this or thumbs up for Zoom. I'm really interested in attention. This is a really interesting human resource and the potency of focusing it. So I want you to think about focusing your mind on the workshop to try and internalize this as best you can. That means no email. Email will take your attention off and what's called attention residue. You might not come back to cognition of what's happening here for a long time. The same thing with side conversations. Please don't do that. The attention causes a neurological cascade, limiting your capacity to think. Now, I'm aware that it takes mental energy to focus. There's no doubt about that. And I think canonically, you can do this for about 20 to 25 minutes. That's why we have a break every hour and we'll have an exercise break in between. These are things that should not, that I would urge you during these breaks, don't let it distract you too much. And that's your time to just take a rest. The worst things to interrupt you are things where you've got to do something or something that has a big emotional reaction. And the most common culprit is your cell phone. Please put it away, out of sight. What's happening is that you're addicted to the cell phone with the neurochemical of dopamine, just the same as you are with cigarettes, alcohol, or gambling. It's the same chemistry. Now, for that reason, some of you won't be able to resist looking at your phone or playing with it. If that's the case, I would ask you to show your yellow card or give the yellow card wave, go outside the room and talk on the phone. And people will not know you're doing, they'll think you're going to the bathroom, won't know you're doing this. And even better, you won't be distracting me or the participants. Card check on putting the cell phone away. By the way, in the large forums I used to do in China, I asked permission to light people up with my laser pointer if they're picking up their phone. And the group agreed to this. And what was interesting was when I illuminated someone, they would be embarrassed and put the phone away. And by the way, I'm really careful not to shoot them in the eye with it, even though I'm not sure it's harmful. They would be embarrassed by it. This is such an unconscious force, they don't even know they're doing it. Use your breaks to provide this rest I talked about for your brain. I recommend, if you can, just lay back, rest. If you need to make a phone call, I think you should do that. Talk with your friends. This is your time to do so. In Asia, it's very common, even with 10-minute breaks, to try and take a quick nap. The Asians seem to be tighter and more easily able to go into this state than we are in the West. And think, I would urge you to look back over the material, think about questions you might have, card check on using your breaks and the movement period to give you this rest for your focus. This is an interesting one. I ask, how many of you have success changing other people? And one or two hands will go up. And then I say, well, how many have success changing your spouse? And even fewer people respond to this. So my question is, if the hand goes up, how did you do it? And a lady said, divorce. And I said, that wasn't what I had in mind. You're going to find in this workshop that mindset or attitude is everything because it sets up the behavior. This workshop is about you changing you. And again, somewhat whimsically, the workshop to change other people is down the hall. If that's what you wanted, it's not this one. And in spite of all this, it'll be inevitable someone comes up to me and said, Charlie, I really want to know what to do about so-and-so. And my response to that is going to be the same one that Gandhi came up with. We must be the change we want to see in the world. So it's quite enough effort to manage yourself. So focus your attention on that, not other people. That one can manage other people's by no means adequately proven. One can always manage oneself. This is a really important point. Card check or thumbs up. So in the workshops in person, I have people come up and sign the agreements that the second chair has put on the chart. I do this for a couple of reasons. One is that it's really important that you codify things. Every agreement should have some step that where you've made an actual action to say, yes, I agreed to this, and it gets people on their feet, and it provides a nice little respite from sitting, and it kind of makes a nice surprise. So this pretty much wraps up our agreement section. I'm going to pause here, and we'll go into social context fields next section. Thank you for showing up, and hope you enjoyed this, and see you in the next episode. And I'm going to reach over here and stop the recording if I can. Let me see.